Actually, in the suttas, the Buddha said that he contemplated 91 world cycles. And since one world cycle is such a long, long time, for him to contemplate 91 world cycles, I believe he must have spent the whole night looking into the past. And during this time, 91 world cycles, the Buddha said he saw only 6 Sammasambuddha. We don't mention Pachika Buddhas because Pachika Buddhas are many. But Sammasambuddha only 6. 3 of them before our Buddha was on this planet Earth. Another 3 is before this planet Earth, other world cycles. So later books talk about 24 Buddhas and 28 Buddhas, and in Mahayana you have 88 Buddhas and all this. It's all cooked up. Even this story, this legend about how the Buddha met the Bankara Buddha, all that also is later writing.
Which means to say, you were saying that the 3 previous Buddha actually was in this world cycle.
In this one?
The other 3, the first 3 was in the last 90 world cycles.
Yes.
And these 90 world cycles only produces 3
Dhammavuddha. So you see, it's so difficult to meet the true Dhamma,
So is there any more Buddha coming?
Oh yes. Yes. So in this world, in this planet Earth, the first Buddha was Kakusanda Buddha, then Kona Gamana Buddha, then Kassapa Buddha, who was our Bodhisattva's previous teacher. Then you have Gautama Buddha. And then the Buddha said that on this planet Earth there's still one more. That is Maitreya Buddha, or Maitreya Buddha in Sanskrit, Milekut. He will come when human lifespan is 80,000 years. But he's not as fat as you see our Chinese image.
But then how come there can be so few Buddhas, Sammasambuddhas in the previous world cycles and then so many in this world cycles?
It's chance. So we are actually very fortunate. But even though the Dhamma, there are 5 Sammasambuddhas in the world, you look at our Buddha Gautama. He mentioned that in his previous life, he, as a human being, he had met the Buddha Kassapa. Okay. After meeting the Buddha Kassapa, and the Buddha Kassapa taught him the Dhamma, he must have attained stream entry. Because after that, he decided to become a monk. And after becoming a monk under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained the first jhana. Because when he came back as Siddhartha Gautama, as a small boy, he could attain the first jhana, right? So under the Buddha Kassapa, he must have attained at least the first jhana. In which case, he would have become this Sakadagamin. Most likely, he would have been a Sakadagamin. And Sakadagamins, they are reborn in heaven. So he was reborn into Tusita heaven. And after Tusita heaven, he came down to the human realm again. At that time, no more Dhamma. So you see, even though there are 5 Buddhas in the world, because the world, one cycle is so long that in between the Buddhas, there are gaps when there is no Dhamma in the world. So when he came back as a Sakadagamin, second fruit attainer, according to the suttas, he has to enter Nibbana in that very life. He's like a ripe fruit, must fall. He must enter Nibbana. So even without a teacher, and for no apparent reason, and his family was so rich and having such a good life, for no apparent reason, he left everybody, his family, to renounce. That could only be possible because he was a Sakadagamin. So after that, he struggled and became enlightened. And then he brought the flame of the Dhamma, kindled the flame of the Dhamma again. So even though, you see, we have Sammasambuddhas in the world, but there are gaps even on this earth when there is no Dhamma. That shows one kappa, one world cycle is so long.
Was it stated in the Sutta how long the Buddha Sasana of this time will be?
No, but it's stated in the Vinaya books that different Buddhas, their sasana lasts different time. And the reason for it, the Buddha says, is that some Sammasambuddhas, they teach little suttas and Vinaya. Some Sammasambuddhas teach a lot of suttas and Vinaya. Those that teach a lot of suttas and Vinaya, the sasana lasts longer. Also, the Buddha mentioned that when there is no more Sammasambuddha in the world, he has to depend on the monks, the later monks, to transmit the teachings. So those that transmit the true teachings will last longer. But those that transmit the wrong teachings will cause the sasana to die faster, pass away faster. And the Buddha mentioned there are 5 factors that lead to the disappearance of the true Dhamma. The first one is disrespect for the Buddha. That means instead of thinking of our Sakyamuni Buddha, people prefer to pray to other Buddhas. And then disrespect for Dhamma. People don't want to really investigate the real Dhamma. They investigate other teachings. Third one, respect for the Sangha. No respect for the Sangha. Maybe because the Sangha doesn't behave properly, and no respect for the Sangha. The fourth one is no respect for the training. This spiritual path is a gradual training. There's no respect for it. The last one is disrespect for Samadhi. So disrespect for concentration Samadhi also leads to the decline of the true Dhamma. A lot of people don't understand why Samadhi is necessary. You can only understand if you attain Samadhi. Because when you attain Samadhi, your seeing and knowing is at a much higher level. It's not that without Samadhi you cannot see and know. You can. It's like somebody at the bottom of the hill. He looks all around. He thinks the view is very nice. But when he climbs to the top of the hill, he looks at a different view. As you can see much further. So in the same way, without Samadhi, you can know and see, but it's a shallow level. That's why the Buddha stressed on the 4 jhanas. The Buddha also mentioned in the suttas that when you attain the 4th jhana, all the myriad knowledges come automatically. That's why, because the Buddha had the 4 jhanas, when he wanted to contemplate the past lives, he could do it easily. Is there a possibility of arahants existing now? Yes. But then arahants and anagamins are very hard to find. Because for a person to become an anagamin and arahant, it is stated in the Majjhima Nikaya that he needs to have the 4 jhanas. That's why the anagamins are reborn in the 4th jhana plane. And the 4th jhana is a very high state, very difficult to achieve. Because when you attain the 4th jhana, the breath stops. So, also the Buddha mentioned that if a person attains these high jhanas, if he's a lay person, he will not want to be a lay person. But then, these jhanas by themselves is not enough. You've got to have the knowledge of the suttas. If you practice meditation until you are perfect in meditation and you don't hear the Dhamma, you're just like Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ had great spiritual power. He could drive ghosts out of people's bodies, could cure the sick, even raise Lazarus from the dead to become alive again. But because he had no knowledge of the Dhamma, he was probably not an Arya. But somebody like Jesus Christ, if he had learned one sutta about the Four Noble Truths, he would immediately become an arahant. So you see the difference between having the fourth jhana and not having the fourth jhana. If you have the fourth jhana and you listen to the correct sutta, you can become an anagamin or an arahant. But you have no jhana at all, you listen to the same teaching, you can become a stream enterer, first path attainer. That's the difference.
Then how come during Buddha's time there were so many arahants?
You know why? Because you can find in the Vinaya books, when the Buddha wanted to gather his disciples, he went to look for specific persons. He didn't simply go to the marketplace and they call you. Not selling medicine, simply preach to anybody. He went to look for specific persons, and those specific persons he went to look for are those who practice the jhanas. For example, the first 5 disciples, because the Buddha had attained jhana, he would have taught jhana to his first 5 disciples. So when he went after enlightenment, he went to them. He didn't ask them to meditate, he just asked them to sit down and listen. And then he discoursed to them sutta after sutta. And after teaching the Anatta Lakkhana Sutta, all of them became arahants. Then after that, he went to look for Yasa. Actually, he didn't look for Yasa. He made Yasa come to him. Yasa was an extremely rich man's son. And then every night, he would be entertained by the slaves who would sing and dance for him. And he would be probably drinking liquor and all that until he was tired, he'd fall asleep. And the slaves would be so tired, they'd also fall asleep on the ground. So the Buddha made him wake up in the middle of the night. And then when he got up, he saw all the servants lying there, half naked, and with their saliva flowing out of their mouth, and the hair all loose. So because he must have been an ascetic in his previous life, they appeared like corpses to him. So when he saw them, he was thinking dukkha and dukkha. So the Buddha probably made him walk out of the house, walk to the city gates, and the city gates were all closed at night. But the city gates automatically opened. So he walked out of the city gates and walked in the direction of the Buddha until he came to the Buddha in the forest. And when he saw the Buddha, he said, dukkha, dukkha. Then the Buddha said, sit down here, Yasa. There's no dukkha here. And when he heard there's no dukkha here, happily he sat down. And the Buddha taught him the Four Noble Truths, graduated discourse on the Four Noble Truths. And after listening, he attained stream entry. The next morning, the father was worried, went all over looking for him until the father came to the same place where the Buddha was. And the Buddha asked the father to sit down and then taught him the same discourse. And the father attained stream entry. And the son, hearing it the second time, became arahant. Then after that, this Yasa's friends, there were 54 of them. They heard that Yasa had, after Yasa became an arahant, he did not want to go back to the house. So he became a monk, disciple of the Buddha. So when his 54 friends heard that he had become a monk, they were astonished. That's the richest man in town. The son has renounced. So they thought his teacher must be very special. So one by one they came to see him in the forest. And the same way the Buddha taught them the Dhamma. One by one they became arahants. If they had not attained the fourth jhana in their previous human lifetime, they would not become arahant just hearing the Dhamma one time. So it's because they were ascetics who had attained jhana. So after the Buddha had these 60 arahant disciples, and the Buddha asked them to walk different roads and preach the Dhamma. Then after that, the Buddha looked with his divine eye who to teach. And the Buddha saw 1,000 ascetics, external ascetics called jatilas, matted hair ascetics. They kept their hair very long. And they lived by the side of the river. And they prayed to the fire. And they submerged themselves in the river water 3 times in the dawn and 3 times at dusk. But because they probably cultivated jhana, then the Buddha went to them. And the leader, probably because of having attained the 4 jhanas, he probably had some psychic power. He kept thinking to himself that he was an arahant. And Buddha stayed several weeks with them and showed psychic power until they were so taken up by the Buddha that all of them renounced to become the monk disciples of the Buddha. And after they had renounced to become his disciples, then only the Buddha taught them the Dhamma and discoursed one sutta to them, the fire discourse. After hearing the fire discourse, all 1,000 of them became arahants. So you see, these are special people the Buddha went to. The Buddha didn't go to the marketplace. If the Buddha was alive today, he would look with his divine eye. Somebody like maybe Albert Einstein. Because Albert Einstein had very strong samadhi, he could do mathematical calculations in his mind, long mathematical calculations without writing it down. He could do it in his mind. So if the Buddha looked for such people, there'll still be arahants in the world. Another reason why it's difficult to find arahants now is that a lot of monks, like forest monks, they go to the forest and they meditate, and then they attain the jhanas. But many of them, they don't study the suttas. So only this combination of knowledge of the suttas and the jhanas can bring you out of samsara. So if you just study the suttas without attaining the jhanas, you can be a stream enterer, but you cannot become an arahant. On the other hand, if you only attain the 4 jhanas without studying the suttas, then you can have psychic power, but you're also not an arya.
People always say that if you attain jhana and then you're reborn as a Brahma, then because your life span is so long, you would have missed the next Buddha.
Oh, that is sour grapes. And people, you can't attain, cannot pluck the grape, it must be sour. Because even, you see, like our Buddha, our Bodhisattva, when he was a pupil of the Buddha Kassapa, he renounced and practiced the Dhamma. And he was not reborn in the Brahma heavens, he was reborn in the Tusita heaven. You are reborn in the jhana planes if you absorb yourself in jhana day and night. But he probably had attained the first jhana, but he did not absorb himself in the jhana day and night. So even though he had attained the first jhana, he was reborn in Tusita heaven. And after he came down from Tusita heaven, also no Dhamma in the world. So even whether you are reborn in this Brahma heavens or in the Tusita heaven, you come back, still no Dhamma in the world. That's why now that we have the chance to hear the Dhamma, it's very important that we make use of it now. Don't think of future. You probably may not get a chance. Also, it is mentioned in the suttas that the Buddha said, people who are reborn in the jhana planes, there are 2 types. One type, they don't know the Dhamma. So because they don't know the Dhamma, after they pass away from there, it is possible that you still go to the woeful planes. But the Buddha said, a disciple of his who has learned the Dhamma, if you are reborn even in the jhana planes, you have already become an arya, you have attained stream entry, you never fall into the woeful planes. So never mind, slow boat, never mind. Slow boat out of samsara is still enjoyable, no suffering. We are only afraid of rebirth in the woeful planes. If you can be reborn in the heavenly planes forever and ever, why not? Isn't it? Nothing wrong to be reborn in the heavens. We're only scared of being reborn in the woeful planes.
Say Sotapanna, how do we know that the person has achieved that level?
The Buddha said that if a person has become a Sotapanna, he has unshakable faith in the Buddha, in the Dhamma, in the Sangha, and he has Aryan Sila. Okay. Many years ago in Penang, we had one lady, people thought that she was an anagamin. But after many years of meditation, she just gave up Buddhism and changed her religion. That shows that even stream entry she had not attained. So this is the first thing mentioned in the suttas. Second thing mentioned in the suttas is that if a person is a sotapanna, he has the vision of the Dhamma. He has seen the Dhamma. If a person has seen the Dhamma, then he sees no security in this world. No security in this world. Even in the heavens also no security. Then he will understand that the most precious thing in the world is the Dhamma. And the most meaningful thing to do as a human being is to practice the Dhamma. In which case, he will turn away from worldly things. It's not like some Mahayana books say that person is a great bodhisattva, but he goes to the karaoke and he goes to the pub and all that, living like a lay person, and yet he's a great bodhisattva. Not like that. Once he has become an Arya, he will turn away from. Previously, he liked to go to the races, go and enjoy worldly things. After he becomes an Arya, his direction is on the spiritual path. And then he will, because he doesn't join his friends in all this worldly entertainment, his friends will think this would have gone funny. And that's the price you have to pay. People think you're a bit funny. Okay, another thing mentioned in the suttas, once a person has become sotapanna, it is mentioned that he becomes independent of others in the Buddha's dispensation, in the Buddha's teachings. That's a very important statement. He becomes independent of others in the Buddha's teachings. In other words, he does not look for a teacher. Nowadays, you find a lot of people chasing after Ho Liao Su all over the world. You don't have to. The Buddha says, after he has passed into Nibbana, take the Dhamma Vinaya as your teacher. And the Dhamma is defined as the suttas in the Nikayas. So if you only take the trouble, to really study the suttas, you will see the Dhamma, the vision of the Dhamma. In which case, you won't chase after teachers anymore. You will know by yourself the way out of samsara. You will practice according to all the Buddha's instructions are in the suttas. In fact, the Buddha's instructions in the suttas are so clear and so practical. You cannot find a better teacher than that. In fact, nowadays, there are many teachers who teach wrongly, partly because they are not so familiar with the suttas. And there's a lot of wrong teachings. I was told recently they had this Vachana conference. And Bhante Gunaratana, he says there's a lot of wrong teachings being taught in Sunday school nowadays. A person who attains stream entry is a person who has attained right view. Once you attain right view, you are an Arya, one of the 8 Aryas. And the way to attain right view is mentioned in the suttas, in the Majjhima Nikaya 43. The Buddha said there are only 2 conditions to attain right view. And that is listening, the exact words used by the Buddha is another's utterance. That's why people don't study the suttas. You don't catch the significance, Another's utterance, That means you have to hear the Dhamma from outside to attain right view. You cannot get right view by practicing yourself. It is impossible. But nowadays, a lot of meditation teachers tell you that the way to attain sotapanna is by meditation. It's not by meditation. The Buddha says another's utterance. You have to hear the Dhamma from somebody else. For example, from the Nikayas, when you study the Nikayas. That is the first condition. The second condition is Yoniso Manasikara. Simply translated, it is proper attention. Thorough attention. So you pay thorough attention when you study the Nikayas or when you listen to the Dhamma talk. Then you can get right view. And once you get right view, you are an Arya. Another thing I like to mention here, a lot of people don't realize, is there's one sutta called the Sarakani Sutta. In this sutta, this Sakya by the name of Sarakani, he passed away. And after he passed away, people asked the Buddha where he was reborn. And the Buddha said, Sarakani has become a Sotapanna. So he has gone for a good rebirth. But because this Sarakani was a drinker, must have drank a lot. A lot of people disbelieved the Buddha. They were very angry. They say, how can this drinker, like Sarakani, be a Sotapanna? If he can be a Sotapanna, everybody can be a Sotapanna. Because they considered he had broken the precept. Then the word came back to the Buddha, and you know what the Buddha said? He said, why should not Sarakani become a Sotapanna? Buddha said, the Sarakani had followed the Dhamma for a long time, had learned the Dhamma for a long time. And then the Buddha said what, very surprisingly. The Buddha said, look at these trees. These trees, they could, if they can understand what I say, even the trees can become Sotapanna. What is the significance here? The Buddha said, if the trees can understand what I say, the Buddha didn't say, if these trees can meditate, they become a Sotapanna. The Buddha said, if these trees can understand what I say. So the word, the word to catch here can understand what I say. So it shows the way to Sotapanna is listening to the Buddha's words, not meditation. If it is meditation, the Buddha would have said so, right? But the Buddha said, if you can understand what I say. If only we take the trouble to study the suttas again and again. Of course, the first time you study, you might find it hard to understand. Initially, when I studied the suttas, I find many things I could not understand. But I kept studying it again and again and again and again. And so many times that slowly things become clearer and clearer. It's just like a jigsaw puzzle. You put a few pieces of the jigsaw puzzle and you cannot see the overall picture. Keep adding, and very soon you can see the overall picture. That's why the Buddha calls his disciples sabhakas, hearers, listeners. He didn't call them meditators or yogis. Call them hearers. And also in the suttas, it is mentioned, the Buddha said, if you want to practice the Noble Eightfold Path, you must start with right view. And not start with meditation, start with right view. And right view will bring you to right thoughts. And right thoughts will bring you to right speech, etc.
They can't even accept the Dhamma so much that our own will have to be very close.
You have to see that person, that particular person, how he can be helped. There are some people, if you give them the Dhamma talk to listen, they might want to listen, but if they are not interested in the Dhamma talk at all, then you can maybe ask them to do some dana, some charity. If you represent them to do some charity, you must tell them.
People say a person who has done a lot of evil actions, but towards the end of their life, they try to have wholesome thoughts. Will that person actually fall into the water thing?
Not likely, because you cannot control your last thoughts. You know why? Because the doctor, after some time, will say this person is clinically dead. And he comes to that conclusion because you have no more breathing and your heart has stopped. But then, if your body is still warm, you're still not dead. And normally a person's consciousness will continue for a few hours. During that time, when your consciousness is still flowing, you're not conscious of the outside world. You're like dreaming. And those last thoughts, you have no control at all. It depends on your everyday karma. If every day you have been thinking good thoughts, thinking lofty thoughts about the Dhamma and all that, and because of meditation, your mind is tranquil and all that, when you die, in those moments, those thoughts will arise. But you are still always thinking of the share market and all that, horses and racing and all that. Then when you are dying, all those thoughts will arise. So your everyday thoughts are very important. So that's why we have to practice the spiritual path and have a lofty thoughts. There's one lady told me the mother died of cancer. And at the moment of dying, because the pain was quite intense, her face was contorted with pain. You could see she had a painful expression. But 1 hour later, she found that the mother was smiling and very happy with a very bright face. That means she had a good heart. She was thinking of good thoughts. Yeah.
If the person really very suffering, can we ask them to let go and then let them?
Yes, you can ask them to let go.
Very torturing already.
Yes.
This is still grasping a lot.
Yes.
Can we ask them
Of course.
to let go?
Yes, but it's not for sure that they will let go. And you know why they don't let go? Because of fear. Normally their karma is no good. They see who can all the ghost relatives coming and all that. Of course they'll be scared. And some are even worse, they see hell. So there was a case many years ago, one of my old supporters, the husband was sick, very sick, and the doctor predicted that he would die in 3 months' time. But after that, he didn't die, and then continued to live on. And the old lady sent the daughter to call me and another monk to go to do some chanting. So when we went to the house, we saw him so thin, all bones and skin, and his mouth was open, could not even close his mouth, and still he was clinging to life because he didn't have enough good karma. So we did some chanting for him, and after that we left. Within 1 or 2 minutes after we left, he passed away. So you see, when some people like that, they are afraid to go. And when they hear some monks chanting for them, they like have some reassurance. So then they let go. So it's not easy to let go. Not easy at all. That's why the Buddha said when a person is dying, that person is afraid for a few reasons. One is because of the evil karma that person has done. Probably will be reborn in hell or in the animal realm. Second one is not enough good marriage, not enough blessings, that person will be reborn in the ghost realm. The reason is attachment to the property or the wife or the family. Another reason is not knowing the Dhamma. When you don't know the Dhamma, you don't know what's going to happen to you. If you know the Dhamma, you know for sure. These are the 5 places I can go to. So if you're a smart Buddhist, you aim your rocket in which direction you want to go.
Bhante, but what if someone who passed away at a very old, rightful age and peacefully, and then, but those few months of life before that, they really, they have amnesia, they cannot remember things. What do you think even someone who's been practicing the Dhamma, when they come to that stage of life, do they still know the Dhamma or waiting for that to come? What would be in their mind then?
Still the same everyday thoughts.
They won't have, they cannot remember the Dhamma.
Even though they don't remember the Dhamma,
what do you think is
on the conscious level, they may not remember the Dhamma, but in their deep consciousness, they would know. You see, like last night in Ajahn Sumedo's talk, he mentioned something which struck me, was very good. He said, somebody asked him about this anger and all that. And so he said, often it mentioned one incident that he could not agree with a monk, and he had a lot of problem with this monk, and they sort of hated each other's guts, to put it bluntly. So one day they had this meeting of all these Ajahn Chah monasteries, Western monks, and he knew that this monk was coming. So was very agitated. I'm not going to meet this monk again in this meeting. And all that, all the anger, all the hatred came up. So he decided to go to his room and write down all the unpleasant things about this monk. And he wrote, he said 3-4 pages. All that anger, resentment, everything, all that, what he calls vitriolic. All that. So he wrote until he ran out of things to write. Trying to add one more thing also cannot. Then he thought to himself, then what else can I say about this? What else? What other feelings do I have of this monk? Then he realized that it was metta, loving kindness. So below all our conscious thoughts, actually, like this metta is natural to us. This loving kindness is natural to all of us. You see, like Mother Teresa, even though she doubted that God existed, she did all this work for all the poor people, not because of God, but because it was natural to her to love others and to help others. So actually this basic feeling in us is there. But the anger and all that arises out of conditions because of ill-spoken words and all these things. Then that anger suddenly arises. But actually underneath it is this loving kindness towards all beings. So we must not only focus on what is thrown up in our mind, what is basic underneath is there. So in the same way, like if a person is dying, he might have amnesia and all that. But that basic state of that mind is a good mind, is a good heart. That is what will bring you to a good rebirth. All of us, we have a conscience. If only we listen to our conscience, just keep quiet and listen to our heart. But all of us, we take our thoughts too seriously. These thoughts, our thoughts actually arise out of the ego, selfishness. We want to protect ourselves. So this thinking mind is our best self-defense system. But it is not lofty. It is a calculating mind, a cunning mind. But underneath that is what we need to look for. So we need to listen to our conscience more. Listen to ourselves. Like praying. Last time I came from Catholic school. So during recess time, I used to go to the chapel and pray. And we pray very deeply. Actually, what are we calling out to? Who are we praying to? Actually, we are going deep into our mind. We are calling out to our mind deep inside us. And the one that answers us also deep inside us. Okay, and yeah.